But if anyone is coming to Dominican Republic, at your own risk. They are racist, very segregative, they are horrible, there's language barrier, they are just terrible people.
How was the experience like being locked up for 4 days?
Yeah.
Bishop is more spiritual. I listen to Bishop and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Africans belong to Africa. I lived in Europe for some years. I never became a European. How does a European come to Africa and become an African? Put it on record. You can spend 20, 30 years in Europe. You will never be a European young lady. You remain an African. Few Boeros will walk out. Few people from Netherlands would come to Africa and then say, we are Africans. Wow. And Africans being religious, we easily forgive and accept them as ours. May God bless you. And then others will say, Maponga Ji, he's speaking so much anger about money. So you want lots of money, huh? You're preaching the prosperity gospel. Hey, I don't have a problem. Me, I want money and lots of it. If you don't like it, may the Lord grant you also the desires of your heart. And if poverty is your portion, please may you have it in double portion.
And it's...
This has really been a dream come true for a member of the 12 to be able to spend this much time.
subtle, semi-civilized, first world mindset. I mean, when you're coming here, you think you're going to be meeting progressive people who... Gavi is coming from here. Mali is coming from here, from this region. So you'd expect some certain amount of sensitivity to geopolitical, historical disadvantaging. But to have black people now sitting in positions of authority and reinforcing with power and force the draconian laws of colonialism, unbelievable. So I came in here because I was avoiding the visa ports, both in Europe, Middle East, and in America. I said I would get to Jamaica and use a non-visa route. And the non-visa route for me was either Johannesburg, Paris, as long as I was going to be remaining in the airport for about 6 hours, then connect Paris, Cuba, Kingston. Or I would have gone through, London, non-starter. Miami, non-starter. New York, non-starter, so I opted for Sao Paulo, Panama, into here. Yeah.
Now, here I want to tell you something. Have you ever thought of this idea of visa? We have these migratory birds. They just roam the earth. Like, there is no restrictions for them. These birds, these animals, a bird might live in Netherlands. It can be having a residence in Netherlands, and during winter it leaves Netherlands and it comes all the way to the Serengeti. It can come all the way to the Masai Mara. Like, there is no limitations, But we humans have placed visas on ourselves. These visas are a thing that is stopping Africans. Not only Africans, the European people, the whole humanity from interacting with one another. The white person came and he placed these visas on us. Yet, here's the funny part, yet, on his side, he removed the visa. We have the Schengen region in Europe. I got some family who live over there, So, one time my uncle is telling me that he can have lunch in Germany and then have a supper in Switzerland. I'm like, huh? How is that possible? What about the paperwork? The infrastructure supports it. The legislation, the legal matters support it. For Africans, it might not be the transport system. It might be the legal matters. The papers are preventing us from doing all this. Right now, if people want to come to Kenya, we have the ETA. The ETA is not as strict as a visa should be, but it's still a way of making somebody pay for visiting your country. Something that's not there in those European countries. We should learn from the birds. These are migratory birds. How much more can we know? When God was building the earth, he didn't place boundaries. The only boundaries God placed is the boundaries between humans and animals. He made some animals domestic, and he made some animals wild. He separated the earth from the sea. At least there are some limitations that have been placed by God. But these ones that have been induced by humankind are very, very dangerous, you know. It's high time. It's been a song that has been sung. Maybe it might not be in our lifetime, you and me. Maybe it's in our children's or our great-grandchildren's lifetime where we will experience a no visa Africa or a borderless Africa. The brother Joshua Maponga had to suffer a lot. He had to maneuver through the airports. The airport provides some kind of immunity to people who are traveling, you know. But this is not right. This is wrong. This is wrong. So let's continue watching and see what we get.
After getting here, the conference finished on Friday. So Saturday there was no flight out. So I opted, let me get a flight into Dominican Republic, because then I could connect quickly into Guarulhos, and from Guarulhos straight into Sao Paulo, and I'm out of here. And to my shock and dismay, I was detained in Dominican Republic for 4 days.
4 days?
Denied food, water to bath and to drink. I was denied a bed to sleep. I literally sat on the bench for 4 days. I bought 4 tickets to go back home, and all those tickets expired with their instructions that go and get something like this. I go and I make an internet, phone my wife and phone people, buy tickets, I come and bring them. No, the airline does not want to carry you. Next story, Panama wants a visa, you are supposed to go there. But I don't need a visa according to the documentation. Brazil needs a visa. Ultimately, no, it's our law that we must take you back to the country where you came from. Then you can restart your trip from there because you're using 2 different flights. So you can, some stupid little story that is unheard of. And only to come back into Jamaica and be locked in for another 2 hours plus $400 to buy a new visa to come back into the country. So as of today, I've had to apply for a visa altogether into Brazil, though on paper it's not required, but the airlines want it, so we must apply for it. Went to Panama to get a documentation from the embassy, though we don't need it, but the airlines want it. So when I get those documents, I hopefully can begin to move away from here and go back home. But if anyone is coming to Dominican Republic, at your own risk. They are racist, they're very segregative, they are horrible, there's language barrier, they are just terrible people.
How was the experience like being locked up for 4 days, man?
I think it is slave trade on steroids, that you can be having credit cards in.
Let me discuss something here. We have what we call Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is when you find some attraction or you find some pleasure with the person who oppressed you. Think of it as you find comfort with your kidnapper. That's Stockholm Syndrome. Africans are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. You see what they did to Joshua Maponga. What Joshua Maponga is suffering is white supremacy's ideology. Why is it white supremacy ideology? Come to think of it. If it was a white person, would they be detained for 4 days and 4 nights sitting over there? No food, no water, no bed. 4 days. And it's a human being. Sit and think. If it was a white person, would it have happened? They would be afraid of, hey, this is a white person. We have to worship this our little God, you know. If we do wrong to him, his country, this and that. The Dominican Republic, those people have African DNA in their blood. They have African ancestry in them. I don't know what this man did to them to deserve that kind of punishment. And it's so biased. It's so biased that a fellow African is racist to a fellow African. It's so bad. It's so bad. How can an African be racist to an African? It's just a psychological problem. It's the thing that has been placed to us by the colonizer. The colonizer left some very, very bad wounds to us in the continent. We can't see this. There's a writer, there's a Kenyan writer who had to escape from President Jomo Kenyatta, the first president, because he wrote the book, Not Yet Uhuru, Not Yet Freedom. He went ahead and wrote another book which is called Decolonizing the Mind. Decolonizing the Mind. I don't know whether you'll get the full extent to this. Decolonizing the mind, removing all that garbage of white supremacy, removing all that garbage of black inferiority, and planting the seed of equality, planting the seed of non-racism. The brother here is suffering because he's African. And the good thing is that he's warned everyone. He said that if you want to go to the Dominican Republic, go at your own risk. Don't go black to Dominican Republic. No, don't go black there. Go black to Africa, but not the Dominican Republic. It's so bad over here. And the brothers just suffered. You know, when I sit back and think of how these people mistreat people of African ancestry or people of African decency, I feel like crying. I really feel like crying. This guy, this man could be you or me. This guy could be your son or your daughter. This guy could be your mom or your dad, your grandpa or your grandma. It could be anyone in your family. So looking at this video, it should enlighten us of the things that are to come, the things that are there, the things that was there. This is so saddening. It's so saddening. But when they come here, Africans rejoice, Africans praise them. But when Africans go there, you know, it's like a group of friends where, you know, because you have something to offer them, they'll be so kind and be so generous to you. But make no mistake and go to their territory. Make no mistake and go to their territory. There shall you see their real identity. They are sheep. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. These are wolves in sheep's clothing. I hope you understand what I'm telling you. Okay, let's continue watching this.
You can be a door. Literally from where they locked me up, the door which was selling food was like where that tree is. And they would put guards here, not to make sure that I don't go there and buy food.
My goodness.
And just sit there. My embassy called. They wrote a letter. I can show you the letter. To release, but they just said their own ambassador for Dominican Republic, who is in Cuba, liaised with my embassy to say release that man. They still refused. So I became a prisoner in the Caribbean. And where I was, by the way, Domingo means the dogs of God. And this is the place where also the slaves would arrive and be kept in prisons there, and then distributed in parts of the Caribbean, including here where we are. So I felt that maybe it was more as a spiritual thing that I had to experience this, but it was horrible. It was horrible.
But you came to Jamaica with a visa too, right?
Yes.
And then when you arrived, the same visa should have allowed you to enter again.
And again, this whole visa thing is a big scam. It's just a polite way of managing, sanctioning people, restricting movement of people, prioritizing your own national interest above everyone else's interests, and making sure that Africans don't speak to each other. Because if you notice the countries that have most of the visa restrictions, like when I was there, do you have an American, because they said, do you have an ID? And guess me, being me, I produced my South African ID. No, do you have another ID? Then I produced my Zimbabwean ID. No, these are not IDs. On my face.
So what is an ID?
No, an ID is an American ID, a European ID, a British ID, or a Canadian ID.
I told you, Stockholm Syndrome. White supremacy, black inferiority. Hey, I told you, it's not like I watched this video before, no. A viewer of mine from the Caribbean just sent me this. Goodness. Like, where is the position of the black person in this world? Why is it that when they come here, we give them all the services, we give them the best part of the meat, we give them the steak, but we give bones to our Africans? Why do we do that? Why is it that when they come here, we praise them? It's easier for an African to go angry with a fellow Africans over a white person. I've seen it. So what is an ID? An ID is an identification document. Something that shows who you are and where you come from. So a passport tells you of your identity, of where you come from. That's a passport. A visa is a special permission that registers or that informs the people of that country that you have the permission to be in that country. Permission to be in that country. Remember when I told you about the migratory birds? They don't ask permissions. If they were to ask permissions, we would have no birds. We have the Masai Mara wildlife. The animals are crossing Kenya to Tanzania, Tanzania to Kenya. We don't have officials sitting over there saying you belong to Tanzania, you belong to Kenya. You know, we have the Serengeti on the other side and we have Masai Mara on the other side. To them, to the animals, they don't see Serengeti, they don't see Masai Mara. What they see is land. Humans should learn from the animals. What's an ID? Should I be white for my ID to be called an ID? Oh my goodness. And the person who is doing this is an African. A person with an African blood. How bad can it be? How bad where have we reached as Africans? This is sad. It's very, very sad. I wonder how our children will be traveling. Such things can make somebody not want to travel to such kind of countries.
Those are IDs. The rest of this is not ID. That's not ID. But he said he wanted an ID. And me being me, I said, how can you say another sovereign country's ID is not an ID? When you ask for an ID, and what do you think this is? It's not written national identity card? No, when we talk about ID, we only mean America, Britain, and Canada.
I think it's extremely hell to travel in the Caribbean as an African.
And West, I think our brothers here and sisters have been brainwashed also to be suspicious towards their own brothers. And it's sad, because just imagine, the Caribbean in its totality, maybe it houses a couple of millions of people. If you can take the amount of human resource in the Caribbean on its own, and they could focus at servicing Africa, there's no one in the Caribbean who should be out without a job. Highly skilled job. America is harvesting from the Caribbean. Europe is harvesting from the Caribbean. Imagine the amount of resources we have in Africa. If the Caribbean could just open its borders and allow the trade of uranium, of gold, of platinum, power stations, allow the ships. And this really pisses me off, sorry for the language, that during slave trade, ships docked at Ghana there, docked at Gorée Island, docked at St. Helena, and moved straight to the Caribbean. Immediately slave was closed. To come back on the same route, you must do an extra 35,000 kilometers to the left and to the right. And to date, as we speak right now, there's no direct flight between all the islands and Mother Africa. Yet Gavi, yet Mali, we're all talking about repatriation and moving Africa. How do you move back home when you don't even have the transport? Or the routes. I'm looking at all the Caribbean ministers. I'm looking at all the Caribbean presidents, all the Caribbean governors. You must be sick in your heads and wasting time sitting in your offices, smoking and burning taxpayers' money when you cannot deliver the tears of the ancestors who sleep on these grounds, who all they wanted was to go back home. And you'd sit in office and make sure that the citizens, the young people, the young generation, will not even know which route to go to Africa. Imagine a high school boy who simply wants to trace his routes, and he's told how many visas do you need just to get across the ocean. Why can't we make it easy? Imagine your son coming here to study, my daughter coming here to study, bringing me home a Jamaican husband, going there, bringing home a Zulu girl. Cultural integration would begin to neutralize this issue. But until we begin to have this conversation, and I'm glad me and you, as you representing the North, me representing the South, we're here to come and tell the fellow Caribbeans that you don't need to be strangers. We are your brothers and we are your sisters.
We are not criminals. See, anytime I pick up my passport, that I'm about to travel within the Caribbean, I get scared. And I've been talking about it. People even felt like I was making their countries look bad. But I'm so glad that you also experienced
I'm not making their country look bad. I'm just relating what happened. And the beautiful part is that when you travel and you don't have a big poster on your forehead that says Bishop Maponga J, and with a CV of what he has done, what he's doing, the media and what, and movies, and the amount of influence that he has, then all of a sudden people must now treat you nicely because you are carrying the credentials. Exactly. Okay, so what happens to the common person?
Exactly. This is what I've been preaching. That I know all the people that will make my travel easy for me, but I'm not interested. Recently something happened to me. I was going to Antigua and Bermuda, and then I applied for a visa. They didn't even check. All they saw was an African.
This is 2 days ago.
This is 2 days ago. All they saw was an African applying for a visa, and they denied me. Like, my $150 was just gone. And funny enough, I posted it, and the Prime Minister himself came to respond that you got this reaction because recently I think over 100 Africans came into our shores and they were illegal. And because of that, any African that applies for a visa, we deny. I'm like, you deny without even checking.
It's stereotyping. Stereotyping, and they're already wired like that. They already with these. You see, when I lambast my African political leaders, that you are Uncle Toms, you are stooges who are managing the colonial system to benefit to you, to the sacrificing of the community that is under you. Because under common normal circumstances, it does not make sense that an all-black government, all black, could sit around and manage the same colonial rules that oppressed them. Now they are responsible for managing the same rules. How can you expect the laws that oppressed you to liberate you? How does it happen? The man that raped you and abused you, he comes around and says, now I'll help you to heal. I'll help you to heal. Don't worry, I'll clean you up. I'll get a doctor for you. That's sadistic of the highest order. If you have done what you have done, just step away. Let me hang around my own relatives and fix this mess. But for us to think that the Western world and the Northern world will have solutions for the Caribbean, will have solutions for Africa, we must be smoking. And I'm glad we're in Jamaica. We must be smoking something very strong.
After being here, what would you say that will be a solution for both Africa and the Caribbean?
The first idea that I was talking to Brother Clinton here, my beautiful friend that I found here for the past few days, is to start organizing African games between the Caribbean and Africa, business, symposiums, young entrepreneurs who can begin to come across the ocean, transport.
During weekends, we do like a grill. So people have to eat, have their bellies full.
Transactions, commodity, movement, but for a start, even cultural exchange programs. I want to actually open up a cultural center in Jamaica here and then call other African spiritual people to service the black community within the Caribbean who badly need spiritual guidance in one way or the other, which has gone far into Catholicism, far into Rastafarianism and etc., far into Christianity and etc. And Jamaica on its own has the highest population of churches in the Caribbean. How many per square kilometer? No, so immediately these people are all churched people. Guess where they want to go?
Heaven.
You can't talk anything to someone who wants to talk about the state of the dead when they can't even understand the state of the living. Their minds are on some pie that is in the sky. They can't see the resources that are in their hands. They keep on praying that God must come through. But God is knocking at the door and they won't open the door. So it's a mess. It's a mess, and I think it's high time, and I'm glad we're here to tell the Caribbean community, don't listen to politicians. There are more business opportunities in Africa. All you young ladies who think that there are no men to marry, hey, before you give up on life, get a passport.
Exactly.
Am I lying?
No, you're not lying
Go get
at all.
yourself in Nigeria and Ghana and Zimbabwe some nice green bananas, some Zulu chief and strong young men, and get yourself married. And vis-a-vis, this is the kind of, we have come here to tell you that you can come to, and this is a beautiful story, I think.
Yep.
We have come here to say,
this man is speaking out of heart, he's speaking out of experience. He's saying, don't listen to the politician. I think that's a message that does not only apply to the Republic of Dominica or Jamaica. People should really not rely on politicians. You know, how many of these politicians have promised us A and they have not even done B? You know, politics is a dirty game. We should never trust the politicians. Now, apart from that, the Jamaicans and the Dominicans, these people are no different. Jamaica and Dominican Republic are more of the same countries. You know, these people are one of the same people. This video was shot in Jamaica, it's not in Dominican Republic. And you can see from the visuals that we have so many black people everywhere. It's time you forget that you are outside the continent. You forget that you are in. You know, sometimes even here in Africa, I go to some places, I forget that I'm in Africa. I think that I'm in Europe because of the pictures. I've not been to Europe, but because of the pictures I get and the environment I visit, I think I'm in that place. You know, and so right now, what's happening here is people welcome more of the white people, this white supremacists. Everything that is closely resembling white is holy, is good, you know. And the gentleman is saying it's high time the people in the African diaspora, the Africans in the diaspora, including the people from Dominican Republic, should try and move back to Africa. Yeah, move back to Africa. You came from Africa, most of you, because, you know, right now you intermingled, you know. So they should move to the continent and seek jobs. We don't have jobs over these places, you know. And it's funny that many Africans did go to Dominican Republic illegally, and so the Maya went there and without even checking his paper, as long as he's black, he's African. No. Even if he had special pardon from the president, it would be a no, because it's African. What if it was a white person? Would it have happened? That is a question that you should ask yourself. If you're in a weird position, ask yourself, if this position was a white man was in my position, would he have been treated like the same way I'm being treated right now? The answer will tell you whether you are facing racism or not. So let's finish up with the video.
There are people here. And we can go back there and say, we saw them, they are alive there. And we hope that through these conversations, they could begin some...
And what is that one common thing that you found that is so similar with Africa, in the Caribbean?
Oh, well, the old people that I've been living with are very grounded. Very grounded. They feed you like you are going out of it's going out of fashion, and they are highly spiritual. And I think, at a deeper sense, the lack of identity or the blurred memories of distant past that they have, the little that they have left of what identity is all about. Now they're really holding on to that, and I find that they are ways of cooking could be the same. Founded some yam here, found some plantain here also. Though in the south we only have cassava and lots of fruits here. And highly spiritual. Jamaica is highly spiritual, and I was greatly blessed. I did St. Anne's, I did St. Martin, St. Thomas, and I did Gavi, I did Mali, I did the Rastafarian community. And quite a learning experience for me.
Your final message to Africans watching you right now?
We are one people. We are one nation, separated by the great ocean. Mabele Made, the woman with the big breast, who feeds both children on either sides of the river. So the Caribbeans can breastfeed. The Africans can breastfeed. We are one nation. Let's build the Africa that we want, and the Caribbean must be the 55th country on Africa Union.
Thank you.
That's a good ending song. I really loved how it happened. I'll see you in Africa. This is just the introduction. Africa is where we have the real deal. This is just an introduction. So thank you for watching the video. See you in the next one. Do remember to subscribe to the channel. And if you're an African wanting to go to Dominican Republic, you've been told, don't want to repeat it. So subscribe to the channel, give the video a super thanks. Yeah, subscribe to the channel, give the video a super thanks, join my Patreon. Yeah, choose the one which works for you. I'll see you in the next video.